Keeping your word. It's a cherished principle we teach our students. So how can Governor Schwarzenegger break his promise?
How did a bold actor who wowed Californians with his vow to reshape California politics apparently squander his once soaring popularity? Is it crunch time for Arnold Schwarzenegger? Good evening, I'm Gloria Penner. Californians voted the movie action hero into office in a landslide that unseated Gray Davis. Since then, in visits to San Diego and around the state, the governor attracts throngs of adoring fans who respond to him in a way that most politicians only dream of.
I say, don't be economic girly man.
And last summer, he loaned his star power to the Republican National Convention. But a year and a half after taking office, Arnold Schwarzenegger seemed to be floundering. He's backed away from his grand plan to reform the state's pension system. He's being targeted with negative ads by teachers and nurses who accuse him of putting business interests ahead of education and health care. And he apologized last week after he was roundly criticized for proposing that the United States close the borders. Now, fewer than half of California voters approve of the way the governor is doing his job. The latest poll numbers show his approval rating is sliding fast, dropping from 60% in January to 47% last week. Tonight, I'm joined by a Republican, a Democrat, and a political scientist for a midterm assessment of the governor and his political fortunes. And we'll also look ahead to his ambitious agenda to hold a $50 million special election this fall and take more reform initiatives to the people. Thad Kauza, you're a political scientist. What does the governor's drop in support tell us about the governor's performance in office and the mood of the people?
Sure. Well, I think the drop that's all come in 2005 really shows that the normal rules of California politics apply to Governor Schwarzenegger, even though he's an abnormal politician. I think it shows us that one, the laws of gravity apply, right? If your approval ratings go up, they can come down no matter how much political charisma you have, and certainly Governor Schwarzenegger still has lots of it. It shows that, two, California's still a blue state, and it leans Democratic, it leans liberal, and if you come forward trying to back fairly conservative initiative ideas and policy proposals, you're going to be in trouble, and really Governor Schwarzenegger is seen to slide mostly with Democrats, right? That's where he's lost popularity, while he's still popular with Republicans. And the third law of California politics that he's learned about is don't mess with the teachers union. This is like the California politics equivalent of getting in a land war in East Asia. Governor Schwarzenegger can call them special interests, but the teachers union is the most powerful, most supported, sort of most sympathetic and best funded union in California, and he's really run into problems when he's been fighting with them.
Okay, well, Larry Remer, you're a Democrat, one of those members of this blue state that Thad's talking about, and a political consultant as well. What do you make of the way that the governor has played out his hand thus far? I mean, he started with real power.
Well, I think he squandered it. And I think he squandered it because to me, it's a fatal flaw in the whole concept of Schwarzenegger. I mean, Schwarzenegger is a media phenomenon, not a politician. And that may be good for glib people to talk about and cover, but it doesn't do anything to solve serious problems. Governing is a serious business. And you have this guy who got up one day and said, gee, I think I'd like to be governor. I've never served on a school board. I've never done anything in public policy. I'd like to be governor, and I'm a star, and I've got money, and I can do it. Well, that's a terrible thing for a state like California. Even the last celebrity kind of star governor, Reagan, had a policy background. He had been a spokesperson. He'd been a writer. He'd done stuff on a substantive basis. So Schwarzenegger came in as a media phenomena, and instead of working with the other players in the political spectrum, the so-called interest groups, the consumer groups, the legislature, he just started throwing bombs at them because that's all he knew how to do. And now these bombs have basically blown up in his hands, and I think he's getting what he deserves.
Well, we've got to get an opinion from Mark Price, because, Mark, you're an active leader in the Republican Party. The governor's election did delight Republicans throughout the state, but you heard what Larry said. He's a media phenomenon, according to Larry. How concerned is the party now that there are signs that he's slipping from a state hero to an inaction